Greetings, sailors, and welcome back to the Michelangelo again. This is going to be a much quicker replay this time because I went back and rejigged the ship again and the captain again because as the comments in the previous video pointed out, that this thing really does only have one real playstyle. It's kind of like the YOLO Emilio. If you're trying to fit it into doing other things, as I discovered, it's not going to be terribly effective, and unsurprisingly, none of the games I played yesterday were terribly effective, although that last one was still decent score-wise. So I have gone back into basically full secondaries / brawling, or as much as I can make it, and I will be, or will have an on to be, to use to use a little reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which just came to me just now. So we'll see how many people remember that. But yeah, basically the captain skills and the setup are different once again. It would be nice to have a few more captain skills. There's a couple more captain skills in there that would definitely be useful, but you know, the limit is 21, and I absolutely didn't want to give up either Superintendent or Adrenaline Rush. So yeah, I was kind of a bit limited by that. So on to the match itself, and as you can see, it's pretty favourable matchmaking in this one. I don't think it's going to get too much better than this. Maybe if there were some more tier 7s in the mix that one could bully. I'm also going to point out this is a very heavily edited replay. For me at least, the focus is more going to be on what the ship is doing and what I was able to do with the ship rather than the match itself. Although, of course, I'm going to comment a bit on the match also. So a big blob of the team, as you can see, is over towards the A cap. I'm using one of my smokes early to try and grab the B cap, and I did get a little bit of secondary action in the process, but there's a bit of an issue with not having a catapult or nobody else spotting for you, in that the secondaries, you know, they're not going to fire at anything if it's not spotted. Overall, I'll say I'm still not 100% convinced by the secondaries. I think it's more the close range brawling setup that makes it more effective than the focus on secondaries themselves. There is some bonus damage from the secondaries, definitely, but I feel like the I forget the name of the skill, but the one that gives you decreased dispersion when you're within, not within spotting, it's when you are outnumbered by enemies. I think that's the trigger for it, but yeah, that one I think is proved to be more useful in terms of getting a better damage out of the main battery. It would also have been nice, I was talking about it was quite tricky to choose captain skills. It would have been nice to have the I forget what I'm forgetting what this skill's called as well, but the one that lets you change shell types quicker. It's annoying, that one, because it's called different things for cruisers and battleships, I'm pretty sure. Unless it isn't and I'm making that up. There's one of the skills, there's definitely one of the skills where it's the same thing for cruisers and battleships, but it's called something different. Anyway, some attempts to use AP there. I was definitely using the AP a lot more in this one, but for ranged targets, like that Monarch, like the Iwami there, I think the SAP is going to be a bit more reliable. One of the skills I could have taken was the heavy SAP, because having the decreased concealment, not necessarily a bad thing, but I just didn't have the captain skill points. Anyhow, we've got the Kitakasi capping. There's a couple of ships over there, and I've decided I'm going to try and be a bit more aggressive here. I don't want to push into 2 battleships, but it looks like I'm not going to have to. The Missouri's actually turning around. The Abruzzi I'm not so worried about. And the Heisen, well, it does have those 16.1 inch guns, which can be quite nasty, but the survivability of this thing in terms of its ability to take a punch is probably its greatest strength. It really is quite a tough, heavy cruiser, and it sort of has to be to make up for that awkward turret placement. If it was really fragile with that awkward turret placement, you would just get annihilated so easily, and it wouldn't be much fun to play. Not that I would categorise this ship as necessarily fun for me to play anyway. I think this is just one of those ones where it has such a set play style. It's kind of like the Paolo Emilio, you know, that's another one I don't really play. It's got such a set play style that trying to make it do other things is it's tricky, and it's going to be suboptimal. So yeah, the Abruzzi's also backing off this. Iwami, however, fancies their chances. They're giving me lots of broadsides, which is nice. I'm also well within secondary range here, so we'll see if I particularly get any benefit out of that. But because there's SAP secondaries, I was pointing this out in the live recording. You know, it makes them very effective against things like destroyers or lightly armoured cruisers. But against battleships, the inability to set fires definitely hampers you. So you really are relying a lot more on the direct damage of your main battery and whatever your torps and secondaries will give you. And I did actually manage to use a torp there, which was quite nice. So that's me up to nearly 100k. I think this is almost already, in fact that's ticking damage as well, so this is almost already better than any of the games I did damage wise. In fact, it might even be better. Did I get up to 80k in one of those games? I can't remember. But we are definitely going to surpass that in this game. But a big part of that is just the favourable circumstances. And, you know, this individual particular scenario we have right here, where there is a battleship who is just giving me their broadside, just begging for me to shoot AP at it. And I think any similar cruiser like the Siegfried or the Aegea or Carno or like anything firing AP, big caliber AP, would have done quite well in this scenario. They just wouldn't necessarily have had their secondaries pew-pewing away at the same time. So this ought to be the killing blow. Obviously the minus 8% dispersion really helping out in that scenario, and yep, there's torpedoes as expected. That's why I had the hydro going, so I can easily avoid those and get back towards the cap, hopefully. The C cap, however, or the A cap rather, has gone pretty horribly. It was most of our team, and most of our team has now died over there, which is rather unfortunate. We have killed some enemy ships as well, but this is kind of slipped away from us at this point. It would be pretty hard to come back from this, especially as they have a very, very healthy Musashi. And this thing might be tanky, but, you know, Musashi. Those 18.1 inch guns do not care. And it really is going to be down to RNG if you survive without taking any significant amounts of damage. But let's not discount Missouri's guns either. Missouri's 16-inch guns, the American 16-inch guns, are also very, very unpleasant if you happen to be on the wrong end of them. So there goes that Abruzzi with some more AP. No more cuts at this point. I'm just going to speed things up so you can have a sense of what the end of this battle is going to be, because yeah, it's no surprise that we're not going to win. We've got a Poltava, which is not especially great. The Kearsarge, which is same lovely guns, but is very, very squashy in comparison with a huge flight deck. And they've also got, what is that, cruiser, and their two destroyers that were over there are also still both in play. I have myself at least managed to reach 150k, which is, I think, not bad, all things considered, and I think at this point decided I would like even more damage and got a little bit eager. I could have hung back a little bit, just killed my speed down to half to give myself just that bit of extra time to cap, but no, I didn't. Maybe I thought I would cap before I was in range, but clearly I'm not going to. This thing is pretty fast in a straight line. This thing does have a very decent turn of speed, and of course that captain skill gives you extra speed when there's that, is it outnumbered, that skill's called? I think it is. And yeah, that and the Sierra Might flag, it's like up to 37-ish knots, 38 knots, something like that. So I was never going to cap in time, and of course I get reset by the Missouri. That first salvo really should have been AP shells as well, and he really did smack me very, very hard there. And at that point it's like, oh, okay. I was healing, but just wasn't enough health to survive, and I was too close to use my remaining smoke as well. The smoke firing is actually not as bad as you would think. It's, I think, 11.1 kilometers debuff, but yeah, I was well within that at that point. So yeah, I did get my revenge though. I killed the Missouri with a torpedo, and that took me up to 200,000 damage, but I died in the process. And yeah, I could have gotten the cap, but it would not have changed the outcome of that game. That one was lost. I just would have gotten a little bit more XP for getting that second cap flag is all. So there we go, 1450, 200k damage. It was a fairly tight game, all things considered. Like, they only had 4 ships left at the end of it, but we just lost so many ships around the A cap, and they still had... I mean, the Missouri itself was still very healthy, and I was able to take it down. You know, you get a one-on-one scenario with a battleship like that. You can do significant damage with your guns, but they also might do significant damage right back to you. So, yeah, again, I can't help but kind of compare it to the Yolo Emilio. It's not quite the same thing. You're not torpedo rushing people, but you are trying to find those lone battleships to get in close with, or those lone cruisers or whatever. So yeah, this ship is definitely, it's one of those where you have to fit the playstyle of the ship, and that doesn't really fit me all that well. So I'm going to reiterate what I said at the end of the video. Even though this is clearly the much more effective setup of doing it, this is still not really what I want to do in terms of having fun with my high tier cruisers, so I probably won't be playing it all that often. But I'm sure somebody out there somewhere is going to love this thing. Just because it doesn't click with me doesn't mean I don't think it's a bad ship. I probably should have made that a bit clearer in yesterday's video, but yeah, it just isn't. It just isn't for me, I don't think. So that's it for this replay, and a sort of correction / update to the previous video, follow on, sequel, don't know what you want to call it. Hopefully you enjoyed it though, and if you did, you can do all the usual things down underneath it, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.